Hey guys, it's Saru, and I've been thinking a lot about my past and future. Starting in the game industry and falling in love with community building and development. I mentioned before in my video where I returned back to YouTube just basically last week or the week before. I can't tell, these months are going by so quick, that I was briefly working on a game called GunZ, and that actually led me into a lot of the game dev work that I would be doing. Well, I guess now. One could even say that it even started the path for me. From working at Ijji Games for GunZ, like I said, GunZ Duel, to gaining more knowledge and volunteering to moderate games like Ashes of Creation, to indie games like Witch It over at Barrel Games, gaining my first community manager position over at Snow Peak Studio, helping the marketing team with Revelation Online, and eventually learning more about customer support and the community wants and needs through Activision, and eventually over at Nimble Neuron. To now. It's been quite a journey, so I wanted to check in on GunZ, how it's been doing after, 11-ish years? So, let's get right into it. So a little backstory. GunZ is a game that I played extensively and eventually got to work on with Ijji Games. Back then, Ijji Games was the North American European publisher because this was a Korean game that was only available in Korea, and I guess it paved my way into the gaming world. Back then, my position was simple and mostly volunteer, to be perfectly honest, because it was remote. Because they were located, I think, in California. But I was a game master or a GM, and my thing was basically to report things to the community managers, to help with complaints and issues, try to identify bugs, use the ticket system to email players, help with certain events in the game, help with some feedback, and that's it. Nothing super fancy, quite frankly. But I was thinking about it, and it's sad because at the same time that I joined, Ijji Games had eventually swallowed up all of Ijji Games, and most of us ended up getting fired or let go. So not much there, and then eventually in 2016, I think, Ijji Games shut down GunZ Duel. So I decided to try out International GunZ, which is a private server that had been taking up some popularity as of late. I think last year I was watching some GunZ videos just for, I guess, nostalgia's sake, and a lot of people kept mentioning International GunZ, so I decided to go and try it out. There really wasn't anyone in there. There was maybe like 10 people when I was in there, but it could have just been because it was a Sunday, I think it was. Though I did have some nostalgia hit me right in the face like a truck, and I very much remember the game, the music, the locations, and just everything that I was involved in and helped with, and it was such a great time for me. Fighting players, it brought back some really nice memories where people were just insane with the ways they did combinations of different actions per second. It was mind-blowing. But what is GunZ exactly? So for all of you newer players that haven't really been playing since back then, GunZ Duel is what Naraka and other battle royales, or basically a third-person shooter game, would have basically stemmed from. It was a free-to-play game with so many microtransactions. I think if that game had released in these times, it would not have survived, because back then it was technically pay to win, because if you wanted better gear with better damage output, you would have to basically buy it, and sometimes it would just be a trial version like 7 days or something, which eventually became a norm actually with games that imported from Korea over to the North American servers or the European servers, especially with Ijji Games. But it was awesome. I mean, it was a niche game and not a lot of players knew about it, but you can do so many actions per second, from wall running, stunning, blocking bullets with swords, all inspired by action movies and anime, that anybody that really enjoyed that type of genre, they played this. So much so that players would invent their own style of playing, like the butterfly style or case style, and so many others. It was insane. I could never replicate it, of course. The case style came from the Korean style, actually that's what it's called, and the butterfly style was just basically being able to block and attack and then even shoot at the same time within the span of 2 seconds, going side to side, that it looked like you had butterfly wings because of your swords. International GunZ at least allowed me to try out the different maps that I enjoyed back in the day, from the PvE section to do quests and even training, beating up goblins over and over at the courtyard, to the prison map, which always reminded me of They Don't Care About Us music video from Michael Jackson, if anyone's seen that. This map's always reminded me of that for some weird reason. But anyways, players really made GunZ into something else. Making private servers, even back then when Ijji was the publisher, there were a lot of private servers that were popping up. They weren't really as, I guess, extensive as they are now. And nowadays, players have continuously developed the game themselves, adding new maps, accessory, weapons, anything you can think of, to even upping the fidelity of the game as much as they could, creating their own launcher. It's really awesome to see because it's something that I really enjoyed about when I started. This is basically, for me, this is like the milestone that started for me. So I went to check out Freestyle GunZ, which I had played before, which had a bit more players, and even their UI was so different. The shop was different. I would even say some of the items modded or created in the games were even more high quality than the actual graphics of the game, which made me laugh because at the time that's all we could could really do. The UI elements even of the lobby system was completely different. I thought this was really crazy, the amount of love and passion someone actually did into this, but it was even cooler to see a community welcoming me when I just went into a random lobby. Everyone was just hanging out and enjoying the game. It was funny seeing the developers of the private server adding emojis to the chat when this really wasn't something that we thought about back in Ijji Games. We just wanted a nice way to communicate and then people could wave at each other or do macros. Back then there wasn't. And even Discord integration, which I mean it's getting more popular nowadays, but that's still kind of a new thing, so I was really impressed. I was so impressed to see that even creating a lobby was so different. The amount of work that these players had to do, I don't have words for that. And it was so funny and impressive to see new maps and even player created maps for things like Dragon Ball Z, custom maps like the Mine, which I thought was really interesting to test your skill, and even down to maps that actually test your skill called skill maps, which I was just really enamored by the amount of passion that these guys had. It was really a nice experience. And then to see silly things like Super Mario, which by the way, I thought was incredibly well done and even had me try to hit one of those mysterious question mark cubes to see if I got anything out of that, all the way to this very cool and ingenious map called The Office, which quite frankly, I thought was going to be something from the show called The Office. I honestly, like in the back of my mind, before I pressed enter, I thought I was just going to be walking around throughout the actual office and there'd be references to The Office, but it wasn't that. But still, here are your mini sides and you're walking over this home office. I think this is what this is actually. It looks like a home office, to even fighting inside of a computer if you found your way inside. Honestly, as someone that worked on the game and worked with the management team and the design team to try to fit a lot of things and fix a lot of things, that we found a lot of bugs obviously, this just blew me away. And if that wasn't enough, just a random Minecraft created world just for the sake of it, I'm just so happy that players are still enjoying this game, truly. Now going into a random lobby and seeing players fight each other at high speeds just reminded me of being in the Vention map or the prison map and just watching players or participating and seeing how creative players were, and still are obviously. Now back then computers weren't really like high tech or anything, so even playing at like super high FPS or high fidelity wasn't really something that was common, and seeing it now, obviously like my memories back then to now, it kind of matches, but it's like watching a TV show from like the 1990s and it's like super high quality now and you think that's exactly how it looked like back then, but when you look at the original version it's completely different. It's like the Power Rangers. If anyone saw like the first episode, where you look at it now you're like, oh, this was pretty good quality, and you look at it back then it was all grainy, like 144p kind of quality. Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that, but still, it's nice to see GunZ still kicking, though not officially, but still regardless, kicking in some fashion or another in 2022. I absolutely loved playing this game 10 plus years ago. I enjoyed working on it for the time that I was in there, which was not much, quite frankly. But as a player now, I think I'm just too old for it. Maybe over time I could learn all the actions per second and try to learn it all again, but it's been so long. I mean, it's been over a decade now, I think so. Still, it's nice to revisit once in a while and think of all the nice things that I learned along the way. I mean, it taught me the value of community and the love for gaming, which would eventually bring me to start gaming in MMORPGs like MU Online, Shia, Echo of Soul, RuneScape, World of Warcraft, and a bunch of other games that I just ended up trying until I finally hit my first love, which was Terra. And it's kind of all taught me and started me in creating gaming communities and trying to unite players more and more one way or another. And maybe I'll share that story someday. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and click that adorable fucking bell to know when I upload a brand new video. And don't forget to come join my Discord if you want to chat and hang out. Much love, and as always, till next time friends.